Welcome to Twilight Fables, where fairy tales twist into shadow and the stories you thought you knew begin to bleed. Tonight's tale is one of beauty, captivity, and the golden curse that binds them. This is Rapunzel, the golden vein. Once there was a small cottage nestled on the edge of a deep and whispering wood. A husband and wife lived there, poor but kind, and though their lives were simple, their hearts were full of longing for a child. Day after day they prayed for one, and in time their wish was granted, for the woman found herself with child. Their window looked upon a walled garden belonging to a sorceress, known by many names, but most often whispered of as Mother Gothel. Few dared to look upon her domain for long. Strange light pulsed behind those walls, and the air shimmered with a scent that made the heart quicken and the skin crawl. Yet one day the woman gazed through the stones and saw a patch of bright green leaves that called to her, a plant so vivid it seemed to breathe. Rapunzel, she whispered, for that was what it was called, the most beautiful rampion, said to grow only where enchantment took root. From that moment, she could think of nothing else. Her hunger grew until it became feverish. The husband, fearful for her health, scaled the wall one twilight to steal a handful of the shining leaves. They gleamed faintly gold, as if dew on them never dried. He brought them home, and his wife devoured them with trembling delight. But the next night she begged for more, and when the husband returned to the garden, he found the sorceress waiting. She was tall, her hair black as spilled ink, her skin pale as wax, and her eyes the colour of a dying fire. Her voice was neither kind nor cruel when she said, "Thief, you have stolen what belongs to me, yet I am not heartless. Take what you have plucked, but the life that grows in your wife's womb shall be mine in exchange." The man wept and pleaded, but Mother Gothel only smiled faintly and pressed her long fingers to his cheek. "Do not mourn. I shall care for her better than you ever could." When the child was born, she was indeed beautiful, hair already fine and golden, like threads of sunlight. When the sorceress appeared to claim her, the parents could do nothing. The infant's cries filled the room, and the witch soothed her with a lullaby that made the walls hum. Gothel raised the girl as her own. She named her Rapunzel for the plant that had brought her. The child grew quickly and beautifully, her hair never ceasing to grow. Each time Gothel brushed it, strands shimmered with faint veins of light beneath the gold, as if something within pulsed gently, like blood. "Never cut it," Gothel warned. "It binds you to me. It is the root that keeps you alive." Rapunzel believed her. The witch's voice was soft, her hands careful, her presence ever near. Gothel wove stories of a cruel outside world, of people who would pluck her hair for gold and grind her heart for potion. "Stay here, little sprout," she would say. "Stay where love can keep you. The years passed, and the girl's beauty became radiant, so radiant that Gothel feared the world might one day see it. To keep her safe, she built a tower deep within the forest, higher than the tallest pine, and smooth as glass. There were no stairs, no doors, only a single high window. "There," Gothel said, "the world will not harm you here." She would visit each day, calling, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," and the long golden locks would tumble down, glowing faintly as they uncoiled. Gothel would climb them with ease, her fingers leaving faint sparks where they touched. Inside, Rapunzel sang to herself to ease the silence. Her voice was clear as wind through glass, and it carried far. Birds came to listen. Trees leaned closer. Even the air trembled with her song. But sometimes, when she finished, she thought she heard an echo, like her voice repeating itself from somewhere beneath her skin. When she brushed her hair at night, she could feel warmth beneath the scalp, as though the gold inside her pulsed faintly with life. She once pricked her finger while combing out a knot, and saw not blood, but a thin thread of gold that shimmered and hardened when it touched the air. She quickly hid it. Gothel would not approve. One summer evening, while Rapunzel sang her lonely song, a young prince wandered through the forest. He had heard tales of the singing maiden, and when her voice reached him, he felt his heart lift and break at once. Following the sound, he came upon the tower. There, he hid in the shadows and listened until the witch arrived. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." The sight was both wondrous and strange. Golden hair flowing like sunlight, heavy enough to bear the weight of a person. The prince watched, transfixed, as Gothel ascended and vanished into the window above. When she left again, he waited until night fell. The moon turned her hair to silver fire when he whispered the same words, uncertain but hopeful. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." The hair came tumbling down again. The prince climbed, and when he reached the top, Rapunzel gasped. She had never seen another soul but the witch. His clothes were torn by the forest, his eyes soft with awe. They spoke for hours, and before dawn, they knew their hearts were already tied together. He promised to return every evening, and she, shyly smiling, agreed. He brought her silk ribbons, books, and sweet fruit. She braided his gifts into her hair, and sometimes she thought she could feel the hair itself hum with approval, warm, alive, almost breathing. Each time he left, the strands he climbed seemed to shimmer brighter, as though remembering his touch. But secrets never sleep long. One morning, as Gothel climbed the tower, Rapunzel spoke without thinking. "Mother Gothel, tell me, why are you so much heavier than the prince?" The witch froze halfway up. When she reached the window, her face was pale with fury. "What did you say?" Rapunzel's lips trembled. I mean nothing by it, Mother." Gothel seized the hair, yanking it hard enough to make Rapunzel cry out. The witch's voice turned low, trembling with rage and grief alike. "After all I gave you, you think the world loves you better? You think he will not steal your light, as all others would?" She took a knife of silver and, with a trembling hand, cut off Rapunzel's hair in one stroke. The strands fell with a whispering sigh. For a moment, Rapunzel thought she heard a heartbeat fade from her scalp. Gothel did not kill her. She was too cruel for mercy and too proud for pity. She cast Rapunzel into a barren desert, her tears staining the sand. The witch carried the severed hair back to the tower and tied it fast to the window hook. When the prince returned that night, calling, she let it fall. He climbed eagerly, only to find the witch waiting. "So you are the one," she hissed. "You sought my flower. Well, here I am." Before he could speak, she raised her hand. A blinding wind struck him, filled with dust and burning light. When it passed, he was alone, blinded, stumbling through thorns that tore his clothes. Years passed. Rapunzel wandered the desert, her hair short, her heart hollow, yet her tears watered the barren sand, and wherever they fell, faint gold sprouted like roots. In time, she gave birth to twins, and though she did not know how such a miracle came to pass, she felt her love for them mend what had been broken. One morning, she heard a familiar voice crying her name. The prince, blind and weary, had wandered through endless lands until her song found him again. She ran to him, and when her tears touched his eyes, light returned to them. They embraced, laughing and weeping together. The gold in her tears shimmered faintly, threading through the air like dust. He took her home to his kingdom. They were married, and peace returned to their hearts. But sometimes, in the quiet of the night, the prince would wake to find her hair trailing from the bed, coiling across the floor toward the window, pulsing faintly like veins beneath pale skin. When he asked, she would smile softly and say, "It's only the moonlight, my love," and he would believe her. As the moonlight touched her hair, the faintest whisper could be heard, a lullaby not sung by Rapunzel, but by the witch who had once cradled her. Roots must return to soil, gold to its gleam, and love my sweet to me. And in her sleep, Rapunzel smiled. The kingdom adored Rapunzel. She moved through its marble halls like sunlight, gentle and dazzling, her laughter echoing from the gardens to the balconies. Children followed her to see her golden hair shimmer in the wind, and even the oldest courtiers bowed lower when she passed. The prince, now her husband, was happy, and so was she, or at least She told herself so. But in the quiet hours, when the fire burned low and the candles whispered, Rapunzel would lie awake and listen to the faint sound her hair made as it shifted against the pillow. It rustled like leaves in windless air. Sometimes, when she brushed it, the strands would catch her attention, not because of their beauty, but because faint lines of gold seemed to glow beneath their surface, pulsing softly like veins. When she plucked one out, the root bled light, and when she closed her eyes, she could almost hear it calling, not in words, but in something deeper, like a hum in her bones. At first, she ignored it. She busied herself with lessons of the court, embroidery, the laughter of her twins. Yet at night, she dreamed. In her dreams, the tower was not gone. It stood among the dunes, but it was no longer made of stone. It was alive. Vines of golden hair grew from its base, twisting and pulsing, climbing into the sky. From its window, she could hear her mother's voice, singing a lullaby. When Rapunzel would wake, the scent of that old garden filled the air, though she could not say why. The prince noticed her unease. One morning, while brushing her hair, a task he had taken to with tender devotion, he said softly, "You sigh too often, my love. Tell me what burdens you." She smiled faintly, but her eyes were distant. "I keep thinking of her." "The witch?" "Yes," she whispered. "Mother Gothel." He frowned. "You owe her nothing but the memory of your captivity." "Perhaps," she said, "but she was still my mother, of a kind. She raised me. She loved me in her way, even if it was a love that bound." He hesitated, uncertain. What could you wish to do for her? Rapunzel turned toward the window. The morning sun turned her hair into a river of gold, and for a moment the prince thought he saw faint currents moving through it, like light flowing beneath skin. "I would invite her to our wedding," she said. The prince froze. "Our wedding? It has already been months. I mean, a second ceremony," she said gently. "One for the kingdom, yes, but another for the heart. I want to do it properly, to ask for her blessing and perhaps her forgiveness." "Forgiveness?" He laughed softly, though without mirth. "My love, she would not grant it, nor deserve it." "I know," Rapunzel said quietly, "but I need to offer it." That night, as she braided her hair before bed, she hummed the old lullaby the witch once sang. Her voice trembled. Roots must return to soil, gold to its gleam. The strands in her hands shivered. A faint golden dust rose into the air, curling toward the open window. Far away, in the heart of the woods, an old woman stirred. Mother Gothel had grown thin and frail. Her garden had withered. The enchanted plants were brittle, their roots dry, yet beneath her skin, faint golden lines still pulsed, matching the beat of another heart far away. When the dust from Rapunzel's song reached her, it fell upon her face like snow. She breathed in sharply, and her eyes opened. The pulse beneath her skin flared, faint but alive. "Ah," she whispered, "so you remember me, my little sprout?" She rose from her bed, trembling, clutching the wall to steady herself. When she looked into the mirror, her reflection wavered and doubled. Beneath her wrinkled features, another shape flickered, young, beautiful, golden. "I gave you my light," she murmured. "You grew it, you made it bloom, but you forget that roots never die." She went to her old chest and opened it. Inside lay a coil of Rapunzel's hair, cut years ago. It was dull now, but when her fingers brushed it, faint light flickered along the strands. The witch smiled. "Still alive?" She began to hum, and as she did, the hair lifted slightly, swaying toward her voice. Days later, Rapunzel and the prince set out from the castle. The journey to find Gothel's dwelling was long and strange. Paths seemed to shift, trees leaning subtly toward them as they passed. The forest was not as Rapunzel remembered. It seemed to recognize her. In the distance, faint lights glowed beneath the soil, threads of gold winding like veins. When she touched a tree, she felt it pulse faintly beneath the bark. "Do you feel that?" she asked. The prince frowned. "The air feels alive." "It's her," Rapunzel whispered. "She knows we are coming." When they reached the garden wall, it was cracked and grey, but still standing. The gate opened by itself when Rapunzel touched it. Inside, the garden was wild, half dead, yet golden roots threaded through the soil like veins of buried treasure. At the centre sat Mother Gothel, cloaked in black, her hair streaked with white, her skin pale and hollow, but her eyes still burned. Rapunzel approached, her heart trembling. "Mother Gothel," she said softly, "I've come to see you." The witch looked up slowly. For a moment, her face softened, and she almost smiled. "My little one, you've grown radiant." Rapunzel knelt beside her, taking her hand. It was cold, yet the touch felt familiar, even comforting. "I came to ask you to come to my wedding. I want you there." Gothel's eyes flickered. "Your wedding? You already wed the prince, did you not?" "We wish to renew our vows before those who shaped us," Rapunzel said. "Even you." The witch studied her. "Do you forgive me then, for all I have done?" Rapunzel nodded. "I do." A long silence. Then Gothel smiled, a small, trembling smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How kind you are. I will come." The prince, uneasy, placed a protective hand on Rapunzel's shoulder. "You are welcome then, but we must return before nightfall." "Of course," said Gothel. "The night belongs to roots, and they remember what walks upon them." Rapunzel hesitated, sensing something dark in those words, but she only bowed and kissed Gothel's hand before leaving. As they walked away, the witch watched them through the cracks of her fingers, Her nails drew faint lines of blood in her palm, thin as threads, glowing gold. When they vanished beyond the trees, she whispered to the empty garden, "She has forgotten who she is, but I have not. She carries me still. My blood runs in her hair." She looked down at her hand, where the golden light was already crawling up her wrist like a vine. "At her wedding, I shall bloom again." That night, Rapunzel dreamt of the tower once more, but this time it was not empty. A figure stood in the window, her own reflection, hair unbound, eyes wide. When she spoke, her voice echoed like the witch's.
"Roots must return to soil."
Rapunzel awoke with a gasp. Her hair had grown longer overnight, so long it draped from the bed to the floor, pooling like liquid light. The prince stirred beside her, murmuring in sleep. She touched a lock and found it warm, almost alive. Far away, in the witch's cottage, the same strand of hair stirred on the floor. It glowed faintly, reaching toward the window. The moon outside hung low, bright and waiting. The day of Rapunzel's wedding dawned bright and soft. The sky brushed with a tender blush of dawn. Every bell in the kingdom chimed, their melodies mingling with the laughter of servants and the bustle of preparations. Silken banners unfurled from high towers, and garlands of white roses draped every archway. The prince himself moved among the attendants, his hands steady, though his heart was alive with anticipation. Rapunzel sat before her mirror in the royal chambers. The same sunlight she had once glimpsed through a tower window, now spilling warmly across her face. Her golden hair, so carefully coiled and braided, gleamed like threads spun from dawn. It had been her prison once. Now it was her crown, or so she believed. In the silver reflection, as her maids arranged the final braid, Rapunzel thought of the witch, that old, trembling voice, the one that had once hummed lullabies between the cold walls of the tower, that same voice that had cursed and wept when she left. "She must be so lonely now," Rapunzel whispered. "I should have thanked her. I should have forgiven her." The prince, overhearing as he entered, laid his hands gently on her shoulders. "You owe her nothing, my love. Let the past rest." But Rapunzel's gaze didn't lift from the mirror. "Even weeds have roots in good soil once," she murmured. "And once she loved me." A shiver passed through the air like a draught through a shutter. One of the candles flickered and went out. That afternoon they set out on horseback, following the winding forest road that led to the witch's old dwelling. The path was nearly forgotten now, tangled with ivy and brambles that shimmered faintly with dew. No birds sang here. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. When they reached the clearing, the old tower was gone, crumbled, devoured by the creeping forest. Only the base of the stone spiral remained, overgrown with thorn and moss, yet at its centre a faint golden vine pulsed, thin as a root, curling up from the ground like a memory that refused to die. "She's gone," the prince said, relieved, but Rapunzel dismounted, kneeling beside the vine. Her fingers brushed the gleaming thread. "No," she whispered, "she's here," and she was. From behind the trees, the witch emerged, her back stooped, her robes ragged, but her eyes, those terrible, brilliant eyes, still alive with that unnatural light. She smiled, as though time had never passed. "My dear girl," she said, voice trembling with honey and venom, "look at you, a queen in all but name." Rapunzel's heart ached. She stepped forward and took the witch's hand. "I've come to invite you," she said softly, "to our wedding. Please, it would mean the world to me." The witch blinked, surprised. "After all I've done?" "Even the cruel can love," Rapunzel replied. "And I know you did once." The witch's lips curled. For the briefest moment, something human flickered in her face. An old woman's sorrow, not a sorceress's rage. She bowed her head. "Then I will come." The prince said little on the ride back, though unease stirred in him like a storm on the horizon. That night, as the kingdom slumbered, the witch stood by her window in the guest quarters of the castle, gazing up at the moon. Her fingers, frail and pale, twisted a lock of her own hair between them, a lock that shimmered gold. "She thinks love is forgiveness," she muttered, "but love binds." Her shadow swelled upon the wall behind her, long and crooked, and when she whispered the old words, the candles dimmed, and from the very stones beneath the castle floor, something began to grow. By morning, Rapunzel woke to a strange weight in her hair. She reached up, expecting the soft coils she had left unbound, but found instead a cascade that spilled over the edge of her bed and pooled across the floor in waves of gold. Her breath caught. "It's grown again." The prince entered as servants gasped and gathered the endless strands, trying to lift and tie them, but the more they tried, the more it grew, pouring like molten light, slithering down the steps, crawling across the tiles. "Rapunzel," he called, struggling through the shimmering flood. "Stay calm, we'll cut it." He drew his sword, its blade flashing. With one swift motion, he sliced through the golden mass, only to see it surge again, thicker, alive, coiling up his arm like vines. Each strand glowed faintly, humming, pulsing as though blood ran through it. "Stop!" Rapunzel cried, her voice trembling. "It hurts!" He dropped the sword instantly, horrified. "It's alive!" he whispered. From somewhere deep in the growing tangle came a faint hum, a song, low, old, familiar, a lullaby once sung in a lonely tower. The witch's voice, the vines of hair began to twist. Through the corridors, wrapping around columns and banisters, shoving open doors. Guests screamed as the golden flood filled the halls, but the noise was muffled beneath the song. It wasn't a sound of rage. It was a lullaby, a promise that no one would take her child again. The prince forced his way through, following the faint shimmer of something he recognized. Within the endless strands ran a single thread, brighter than the rest. The golden vein that had once guided him to her tower. He followed it now. "Rapunzel," he called, his voice cracking. "Hold on, I'm coming." The hair whipped around him like wind, brushing his face, whispering secrets he couldn't understand. He slashed and pushed forward, deeper into the golden labyrinth. The throne room was gone. The chapel where the vows were to be spoken had vanished. All that remained was a cavern of gold and shadow. In the centre, he saw her, a figure half-shrouded, standing amid the radiant storm. Her hair flowed around her like a living sea. "Rapunzel," he breathed. She turned, her face luminous in the candlelight, her smile soft and knowing. "You found me again," she said gently. The prince fell to his knees, overwhelmed with relief. "Always," he said, "always." She reached for him. "Then stay," she whispered. "Don't ever leave me again." He took her hand, pressing it to his lips. "Never." Outside, the bells began to ring for the wedding, but no guests gathered, no choir sang. The castle itself seemed wrapped in golden light, its spires vanishing beneath the luminous storm. From the highest tower, the witch's laughter drifted faintly, mingling with the echo of the bells. And beneath that golden veil, the prince and his bride stood together, bound forever by the spell of love. One who had waited her whole life to be free, and another who had waited just as long to never be alone again. But only one of them still had a heart that beat.